Good evening, everyone. It is Monday, August 18, 2014 at 5 p.m. This is a meeting of the Oregon Village Board, which I'd like to call to order and request roll call, please.
Staton?
Here.
Here.
Here. Carpenter?
Here.
Bernier?
Here.
Follig?
Here. Here.
Thank you. Item 3 is public appearances. Item A, presentation of Rotary Club donation for bike trail. I have Andy Weiland here to represent that.
Well, I'd like to actually pass it off to Rotary Club President Uriah Carpenter. So I'm going to take the photo of Uriah.
That's just fine. Welcome, Uriah.
Thank you. Yeah, eventually we're gonna do the handoff.
All right, so we also have Judy Knudsen is also up here as a member of Oregon Rotary. Several years ago when this became before the board, I think Oregon Rotary was one of the first organizations that stepped up and said that a bike trail, a west side bike trail would be good for recreational purposes, commuter purposes, and tourism business and tourism reasons to support both businesses and our local residents to get access to have safe transportation to the west and further to the larger greater Madison area bike trails. Toward that purpose, we contributed, or we plan on donating $10,000 toward this over a 10-year time span. And we'd like to officially present a check in that amount tonight to the village. And on this anniversary or shortly now that there is groundbreaking occurring on the bike trail. So I think it's time to celebrate. And thank you to Mr. Staton, the president here, and the entire board.
And thank you. We're very, very appreciative. Andy?
Oh, very appreciative.
If that's okay, we'd like to do a little photo op and maybe submit that to,
You bet.
to the village.
Yeah.
Or to the
Right.
village, to the paper.
Yeah.
Steve, can I get you to come up and I'll have you hang on to the check for me.
Don't endorse it. I don't want to be in the photo.
Hang on, I got the
We could
calculator.
photobomb it, Jerry. And be like,
Yeah.
All right, now turn
It's
around here.
amazing what good photographs those phones take. It's just
All
amazing.
right, one more. All right, thank you very much.
Jerry, listen to you.
Hey, you did. I got it. I got it.
Listen to me.
I got it.
Listen to me. You know, as most of us know, it's been a 3 or 4 year project on getting us to the point where we're finally starting. And later in the agenda, we will see there was a downside. We did not get the grant, DNR stewardship grant for next year. We did finish 5th, so we're quite high and are hopeful that next year that grant would be approved. So if the board chooses to go that way, I think we probably will. So, but we very much appreciate the Rotary's contribution to this and your overall contribution to the community. So thank you.
Just to underscore that it's been going on a long time. We already are 4 years into our fundraising effort, so we have 4,000.
Yeah. That's why we waited so long. See if you're going to come through or not. Okay, so we'll move to item B, discussion of extending North Prairie Parkway with School District Business Manager Andy Weiland. So you're going to hand this one off too?
Nope, I'm going to try this one.
Okay.
All right. Basically, I just wanted to talk to you from an administrative point of view that both Dr. Bustler and the other administrators of the school district are very supportive of extending North Prairie Parkway through by the ice rink facility. From a safety perspective as well as an environmental perspective, being able to bring traffic through that north side would be very important to us as far as simplifying some bus routing as well as reducing kind of the tensions with the neighborhood. We really think that a valid north-south entryway to our high school would be an important component to improving access to the high school site. So I just wanted to get up here and voice my support for that project. It's a project that, quite honestly, I think its time has come, and I appreciate that the village is looking forward or looking to and planning for that. I shared the same thing with the finance committee last week, and I'll share a perspective from the park board, which I've been serving on for a number of years, is when we were looking at doing some changes to J.C. Park proper, the most interesting thing out of that process when we got public input was the neighbors concerned about traffic flow and how important they thought, listening to them, they thought that bringing traffic in through the North Perry Parkway extension would help their quality of life in those neighborhoods, would reduce the amount of traffic going through those residential streets. So I just wanted to underscore that and again share our support administratively for that extension.
Thanks. Anyone have comments or questions for Andy?
I have a comment.
Yeah.
That should have been done a long time ago.
I would agree with that wholeheartedly.
You know, to me, it's not just the quality of life in that neighborhood that's important, but also safety on Oak Street.
Yeah.
That street is bedlam some days when I shouldn't say with Chief Burke sitting there, but with a bunch of high school drivers when school starts, when it's out, it can be
Right.
pretty exciting.
Well, and just having that as a dead end with the amount of traffic that goes down there is, you know, it's improved now that we only have parking on one side of the street, but now we have parking extending out into the neighborhoods even more because all those people are still having to park someplace. Or they're parking on the park in some
Yeah.
situations. So I think the school board's going to be talking about, just FYI, tomorrow night, a possible referendum. One of the administrative recommendations that the board will be wrestling through as far as a number and what's included in that referendum, it is a parking lot that we'd be adding to the J.C. Park East area. So I can't promise that would be happening, but we have talked about that in relationship to a safety aspect, to trying to get more cars off that street and to improve sight lines for drivers. And obviously extending North Perry Parkway so people don't have to turn around in the middle of the street or go all the way down and do a loop around the sewer plant or something like that would improve the area as well.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Andy.
You bet.
So item C, Oregon School District Board has approved the district's $15,000 share for the $30,000 joint planning effort for the West Side Community Park. That's projects in the 2014 Park Fund budget. So Andy, you're on again.
Real simply, it took a little while as the board was kind of wrestling through our capital maintenance projects, but we had put this in there as a high priority, and it was approved finally a couple weeks ago. So appreciate that. Village staff and I have talked about kind of our goals associated with what we want to accomplish with that. We're not only looking for kind of a plan, but we're also looking to maybe with $30,000 to develop a grading plan so that we can perhaps get some budget numbers. That will be, that also from a park board perspective, what we've been hearing for years is that we need places for competitions to happen, and that neighborhoods do not appreciate those competitions happening in their neighborhoods where we have park facilities. And unfortunately, we do have some competitions happening in some of our neighborhoods, and the problem is we don't have any other options. So if we could create some more fields where competition can happen outside of the playing spaces, and maybe the school district could help in that regard, since we do own some property that eventually may become a school, perhaps a parking lot, a temporary parking lot or something like that could be fashioned there. So from our perspective as again, I guess a school administration, we'd like to see that move forward, and the $15,000 and you're matching $15,000 will be a good start.
This is the park out by the Methodist Church on
Correct.
Alpine Park.
Yep,
So
where
people
this-
viewing, no.
Yep, right next to where the potential school site would
Yeah.
be.
Okay. Any questions or comments, Randy? Okay.
Mike, did I forget anything else? No.
Good.
All right.
I was going to ask anything from staff
Nope,
on this?
nope.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Am I good now?
I think you can leave. You're
All right.
excused. Thanks, Andy. Good to see you.
Come anytime you have 10 grand, okay?
What's that?
Anytime you have another 10 grand, yeah, welcome back.
It's a high standard to come back to.
Okay, item D, discussion of Marty Verhulst regarding TIF number 2 request of $180,000 for business park project. So Marty, welcome.
I'd like Jeff Grenier to join me, because Jeff and I have worked together on
Okay.
this.
And likewise, Jeff, welcome to you. Thanks.
Did Jeff bring a check, Marty?
I don't think so. I don't, can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah, you're on.
Okay.
You were provided with a packet prior to this, involving the construction of a 10,000 square foot facility in the Alpine Business Park. This is on Lot 1, which is right on the corner with Cusack Parkway and Netherwood. We actually have, you have a copy of the offer. The offer is on the entire 9.5 acre site, but the delineation identified a little slightly in excess of 3 acres that are buildable and usable land. But we don't view the part that would be wetlands or non-buildable land as a negative, because we feel like that facility sitting in there, right adjacent to the wetlands would actually be something that would be very nice for the park. Okay, if you know what I'm saying. I mean, it's the wetlands is there as green space, and there's actually a bike path going through it too, where there's an easement on that lot. As you know, this is the second time I've been here. When we were here last time, we presented some very preliminary information and numbers. I don't think we really quite knew what we were involved with. We initially, were thinking we might be able to have a larger facility. Now we've cut it back from 15,000 square feet to 10,000 square feet with the idea that if we need to in the future, we can expand, and it is laid out on the site for that expansion if we were to view that as being appropriate in the future. For now, what we're really involved with is the, I want to call it kind of the competition between trying to install a state-of-the-art facility from day one, but needing to have the volume to support that probably won't be there until later on, 3 to 5 years after the project is initially constructed. And so, what we're proposing here, you can look at project cost structure. We worked on the building and permits cost of $650,000. That does come from Ed Hefty, who I do work with a lot. We, have the offer in for the land, $150,000. The equipment of $310,000. At this point, Brad Willie has indicated it's fine to disclose that he is involved with me in this. And, when I was here last time, I guess anyone who knew me would say, well, what does he know about, truck repairs? And I don't really know very much. Brad would be the mechanic and someone that's highly regarded as a truck mechanic and very experienced. And at the same time, I bring the business side and the marketing side and the numbers. And I think we make a good team. I think that's how small businesses are successful. So you have that breakdown, total project cost then of $1,110,000. We're proposing that, Brad and I would come in with $180,000. In the offer to purchase, we have a $750,000 loan from the bank that is specified. And we're here with a combined TIF assistance and basically a forgiving of the estimated fees. Combined, we're estimating it'd be $180,000. So I'm available here with Jeff to answer questions. I think you can see he has provided some good elevations and site plan and plan for the building.
So what sort of business is this, Marty?
Truck repair would be the primary business, over-the-road tractors, large stake body trucks. But if someone...
Mostly diesel.
Yeah, mostly diesel. But if someone wanted to bring in a pickup truck, we would do that, especially in the early going. We're going to have to be willing to do, pretty much service what might present itself. But later on, when we might have that diesel business with the over-the-road tractors and the large stake body trucks developed, why, then we would not be as interested in doing, we're not going to abandon the customers that we have in that area, but we would not be trying to acquire more of that kind of work. But if you read the offer, we actually are also talking about being available for ag equipment. There is a door opening on the backside of the building, large enough to accommodate a combine with the bin on top to come through a door opening that's wide enough and high enough, and with a roof height in that building high enough to accommodate that. So with that, we feel like we could accommodate any agriculture equipment that might be available. And those would be the primary thing, as Jeff has said, still is going to be the over-the-road tractor, diesel,
Yeah, I mean,
and
the building-
fleets.
The building's designed so if we have a breakdown, somebody has a breakdown, they can have a tow truck drop it right off at the building and pull through the bays and then work on it and then drive it out the other side
So how would the truck get there?
on a tow truck.
So,
They just pick it up the front end and
so it'd come down Main Street? Off of 14?
could
or
come down any street, yeah. Depends on how, the tow trucks work. I mean, if they're from Madison, they'd come down through 14 and they'd take a left on the new, whatever,
It'd take Maine to Braun to Cusick.
to Braun to Cusick and down, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And we're not talking hundreds and hundreds. I mean, these are not, most of them would be drive-ins, oil changes, stuff like that.
And would the project go through without TIF assistance?
No, it just doesn't work, doesn't make economic sense.
And how many jobs are you going to be creating?
We're saying initially 2 technicians and an office employee, and then growing to 2 more, so a total of 4 technicians and an office employee. And, the numbers, that are in the estimated revenues and expenses, we're not just like throwing darts at a board. We're being consistent between the technicians that are provided for and, the revenue that's provided for. And in other words, basically, we've constructed labor for 2 technicians that are 80% billable. And, if you're saying, well, only 80%, well, I operate an accounting practice, it's not very likely that you're going to attain much more than 80% billable. Just, people just aren't billable all the time. You may not have work for them at a particular point, or, there may be just sometimes with overhead, or sometimes when you've underestimated the job and you're working for nothing. So we tried to be realistic, with that, and then provide appropriate markup on parts. Again, the parts that are projected in there as cost of goods sold are an estimate where, how much of a particular job's revenue consists of parts will depend greatly on the size of the job and the nature of the job. But we, Brad and I working together feel like we made some realistic estimates, that are not overly optimistic, because I think that would be the worst thing we could do to then end up with a project that, is turning out not, even with the assistance, not being economically viable.
Could you talk a little bit about the permit relief request? The $30,000? The rationale or what the fees are?
Maybe, Jeff, could I ask you?
What that is would be the building permit.
Oh, the building permit.
Building permits, because, by the time we submit the building permits for for the whole building and all that, we figure what the building permit fee would be. That would be this, village's, sewer and water and fire and EMS and library and all that stuff. So,
Steve, could I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
And just on the fee, it's not, the way that would be structured is, they presumably have those fees as costs in their project costs.
right.
And essentially what they're doing is they're asking for additional grant funding, TIF funding, to offset those costs. But I had a couple of questions. So the TIF request is $180,000 total.
Yeah.
The equity, I heard you give a number, and I
180,000.
It's 180,000.
Equal amount.
And your loan amount is?
$750.
$750. And do you have a value that you're projecting for the project when completed?
1.1.
Yeah.
1.1
And,
million.
and it would all be taxable because this equipment is personal property, subject to personal property tax.
And what is the total project cost? Is that also 1.1 million?
Right, that's what we
So
assume.
your project cost and your project value is the same number?
That's what we're assuming, that it's gonna be the same,
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
unless the appraisers go wild.
We can only hope, right?
You can only hope.
Yeah. Jeannie, you had a question?
Yeah, it's that, so, in the letter that Marty submitted, he says the following items are closed for your review. Mike, is there a reason that those items aren't in our packet?
I have them for you.
Okay. Could we see them?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna, what typically we do is, we listen to the petitioner, and then we go into closed session, and we talk in more detail
Okay.
in closed session.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else for Jeff or Marty?
Yeah, I guess since you don't have the elevations and floor plans and site plan in front of you, you probably don't have any questions on those, so.
We typically, we typically, I should have said this at the beginning,
Yeah.
we caution the board, ask general questions, but we should really talk first in closed session before you
Yeah, then we'll come back and there'll be time to talk about that
text the
stuff.
villages. But I do want to state that I purposely put this email in the packet that I sent to Marty after he came the first time, and I just want to recognize what a great job he did in submitting everything and responding to all the requests that we're looking for. So it's a really good submittal. which the board
Lycon's
will
done
see.
a lot. I mean, Lycon went, they paid for the wetland delineation,
Mhm.
they got all that stuff certified and everything, and we couldn't take the next step without that, so they did a good job doing all that.
And Jeff needs to share in that compliment.
Yeah.
We work, this is a team effort.
Does Lycon, approaching this project from the standpoint of it being a benefit to them, like, do they see themselves bringing their trucks to you for servicing and such like that?
We've not, just got disclosed tonight who's gonna do it. I mean, we've not approached them yet, but there's numerous, Brad has talked to numerous, the school, we designed it specifically for school buses. Right now, you gotta take a school bus either to Madison or DeForest to get them fixed. So that's the kind of stuff that they wanna work on. So anything like that, there's a couple, 3 concrete plants around. There's the school district, there's the village, Brad just did a big job for the village too on one of their trucks. So that's all the kind of stuff that, if you don't do it there's no place in Oregon. Madison's, the closest spot, but most people take it up to the forest at the diesel injection and all that. So having one in town would be a benefit for a lot of people.
There's Wisco Industries.
Yeah, all color.
They have a fleet. And as we approach businesses, in Oregon or surrounding area, why, we will definitely be talking to people with fleets, and Brad has already been talking to them.
Good. Anything else from the board? Like Mike said, it sounds like he responded to our questions from earlier and have been very thorough, which is not a surprise knowing you and Brad and Jeff, so that's good. Thanks. So we'll be talking more this evening.
Do you want to stick around tonight, or?
No.
Nope, okay.
But we'll be in touch.
Let us know when you want us to.
Yeah,
Yep.
be well.
Thank you.
Thanks, Marty.
Thank you.
Jeff.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Mike, just a question on 10C, I think the all-color thing. Are you guys going to talk about that tonight, or?
The committee, is Mark going to be here?
No.
Oh, no.
No, Mark, we need Mark here to talk about
Right,
that,
I just
so,
wanted,
yeah,
in case
no,
you were going to
sure.
stick around, in case you
Oh,
guys
yeah.
were going to
Thank-
talk about
no.
it. So
Sure,
you'll
you'll probably
postpone until next meeting?
Pardon?
Postpone Mark's meeting, or all-color until next meeting?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe have him contact us when he'll be here
Yeah,
at
he'll
either
be here at the
a
next
finance or board meeting. and
Okay,
talk.
sounds good, thanks.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, Marty.
Thank you.
Okay, item E, this is from the Finance Building and Facilities Committee meeting, August 11th. Discussion with Youth Center Director Diane DeSalvo and possible action regarding requests from YMCA, who has overseen our youth center, for an additional $10,000 contribution in 2014. So if you'd like to come to the microphone, please. Diane and your supporters. You can all 3 come up if you want to move one more chair up if you need to. Welcome to all of you.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to speak with you. I guess I've kind of been cut out of the loop on things. So I knew I was asked to come to the meeting. I didn't
So could you tell the board what happened at Thursday night's meeting? And that'd be a good place to start.
Maybe a step back.
I'm still technically a YMCA employee. I can speak to the why. However, I brought 2 advisory board members with me that would like to speak to the Thursday meeting as well as some other ideas that they have.
Sure.
So basically, for public that are in the audience or viewing, what has happened is the Y has supported our youth center, and they're no longer doing that. So finances dwindled dramatically, and with the possibility of, one possibility, the youth center having to close as a result. So Diana's working with her board and others to try to recoup and keep it open.
And I'm also not aware if they reached out and let you know, but the September 1st date that they spoke of is no longer a valid date due to a contract with Dane County and the funds we received through Dane County. That date has been pushed back. They have to give a 90-day written notice. So that date has been pushed back to November 6th.
Okay. I just kind of heard that might have happened. I wasn't sure, so thank you for letting us know that. Okay.
Okay. I apologize for not having enough packets. I wasn't
We can share.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Who needs one?
I think Eric does.
Earlier in the meeting tonight, you, in the spirit of community, had referred to the quality of life regarding expanding the North Perry Parkway. So what we're going to be doing tonight is talking to you about the quality of life for the youth at the youth center. In the package, you'll find that there's just some brief information about what the youth center is, what it does, and the information is for 2013. We don't have any year-to-date for 2014, obviously, because the year is not over yet. But this will give you some basis to kind of, I think, look at the youth center. We have also included testimonials from 2 of the youth, and there are plenty more. And basically what you will see is that this youth center is dramatically important to a lot of the students in this community for emotional support, a safe place to go, sometimes just even basic needs like food. So, working with some of the advisors on the board, we developed a very rough draft budget for this year, 2014. It's pretty self-explanatory what the expenses are and what the income is. And one of the things that was really high on the expense list was utilities, $3,600. It's not that big of a building. Everyone knows it's in the old EMT building. The youth center utilizes every inch of that building, and part of it that's being utilized is the old garage for the ambulances. It is just a garage. It is basically just metal. There's no insulation, cement floor, and the heater out there does not work. So trying to keep the building warm in the winter has become quite a challenge. One of the things that we also want to bring to the table, the Y is pulling out, and their mission statement talks about youth development, but they don't differentiate about youth. Youth are youth. It doesn't matter what their background is, where they come from, what they do. Youth are youth, and if they need help, they need help. Part of the mission statement also talks about healthy living, which I think is pretty explanatory. And the last part of that is social responsibility. And while I think their mission statement is aimed at the youth, I think it might be prudent at this time for all of the adults involved directly or indirectly, with the future of this youth center, that we look at our own social responsibility. These people are our future, and we need to send them a positive message that, yes, they do matter. With the Y pulling out, it's kind of thrown us in a tizzy this year. We believe, and as the numbers will show, we're very close to being self-sustainable. This is an essential and vital part of this community. And the advisory board is working very, very hard to find different ways to save this program. We are hoping for continued village support, of course. And we've also talked with some legal entities on some long-term problem solutions, or long-term solutions for this problem that we have. So, any questions?
Actually, I'd like to speak to, Mike, you originally had asked that we talk to you about what happened at Thursday's meeting.
Yeah.
Basically, meeting of individuals throughout the community, which included school, administrator, town of Rutland, Dunn, town of Oregon. I am not certain if anyone from Brooklyn was there, as well as other community members who serve in different functions such as police, library staff, business owners, volunteers, convened, as well as the youth who want to take an active part in this process, remain for this meeting. It was simply a discussion about where do we go from here. Obviously, finances and being managed by the Y over the last couple of years, at least since Diane has come in 2010, I've been a volunteer, so Dan and I kind of adopted each other at that time, and it's been a whirlwind up and down, primarily with the Y consistently threatening to pull their funding or decrease it. We were not aware initially that they were going to come to the village and ask for $10,000, or in essence, close the doors. We have consistently felt, while the Y has a great positive mission, at times it tied our hands in the ability to make ourselves self-sustainable in terms of the ability to fundraise. In the last year alone, at least 6+ fundraisers had been very much worked at, developed, and submitted, but denied as acceptable to the Y. So while we were being pressured to find ways to resolve our budget issues, by the same token, our hands were being tied to have the ability to solve our budget issues. So while the Y has brought stability, it has brought great employees such as Diane. Prior to Diane being there 4 years, we had a lot of turnover of managers. When we partnered with AmeriCorps, both of our AmeriCorps decided to take on an additional year. And I'm happy to report that our first AmeriCorps volunteer since the time Diane has started, Matt, decided to take a complete career path change and decided not to go to law school, but yet to become a teacher. He just graduated. Our second AmeriCorps, when we parted, decided to get himself employed with the Y. He drives from Baraboo every day. These people are absolutely committed to the youth in this community. They put in a lot of their own time and a lot of their own money. We did, for a while, receive support in the ability to get donations from Second Harvest Food Bank. We were then not allowed to do that anymore. Another number that upset our budget was the Dane County living wage, which was not being executed appropriately or properly. And therefore, when that was discovered, a big chunk had to be retroactively paid back. So our budget has taken a lot of twists and turns. This meeting brought together all different facets in the community who has built positive relationships with the youth center. Primarily the school has probably seen the biggest impact in terms of helping kids be accountable, taking ownership of their education, and opening a dialogue which helps to teach them problem solve and allow them to think about what's next. And the Y has brought Y achievers. And I get emotional about this because a lot of these kids never thought about going to college, didn't know what a four-year college was, or thought that they could even aspire or attain to achieve going to college. And with programs like what the Y brought, opened up a lot of doors for these kids that now have better goals and outlooks. So we have seen a direct impact, particularly with the police department and the communications and cleaning up the skate park and getting these kids to take accountability for the youth center, to help police themselves, to help be responsible, that if they want the youth center, they have to clean it. And that's what they spent today doing. They will spend the whole week cleaning. They will paint. They will organize. They will get out and fundraise with us. They will talk about their youth center because it is theirs. We have kids that come from Brooklyn. We're not sure what our numbers are from Fitchburg. We do think that is a municipality that we do need to approach, but are not allowed to do so as long as the Y is currently involved, about providing some funding, because up until this point, they have not. We have verbal commitments from the town of Oregon, Rutland, Dunn, and I'm not sure about Brooklyn, that they will continue to fund us. And in addition, as we transition, to potentially increase their funding as we decide to transition over to our own 501c3. At this point, I think it was definitely the feeling of everyone there that it could certainly untie our hands and give us the opportunities to fundraise, to do a better job budgeting, and to be able to brand ourselves in a way that's reflective of the youth in Oregon and the surrounding communities. So we currently are operating at a deficit of approximately 3,000.
Our current deficit for this year is around $12,000. I haven't seen any current numbers for the last couple months, but our deficit is $12,000 for this year. I would like to point out that the youth center actually pays into the YMCA for management allocation services $6,500. That's not my salary, that goes into the association. So that's where our deficit lies right now.
However, we believe had we been able to follow through with the fundraising efforts that were turned down and rejected, we may not necessarily be at this deficit. So we believe that with the continued partnership and support of the Village of Oregon, as well as the other communities that I've mentioned, we can at least continue maintaining services for the time being. I mean, we're not going to be out of the woods for quite some time. And in fact, we would ask if the Village of Oregon would consider contributing somewhat more to assist us during this transition period. We would like to be able to make the break. Once we file for our own 501c3, the Y is then able to step away completely. So we're walking a very tight rope right now in terms of that November 5th deadline. We really want to be able to transition to a 501c3, fundraise. Of course, we have to keep our continued support of the municipalities, otherwise our Dane County funding goes away, which would be over $8,500 of our budget. If that amount goes away, we do not have the ability to keep the doors open. So what we are seeking is the continued partnership with the Village of Oregon, the continued support, and to work with us with some solutions or ways to get us to where we can be and not have to interrupt the service for these kids. Initially, the Y was going to pull out on September 1st. There are so many parents who rely on their kids being able to come to the youth center after school that we just did not feel that was in the best interest of the kids in this community. We feel it is in the best interest of the community and all the people that we partner with, such as the library, the senior center, the police, the village, local businesses, that it's definitely of value to maintain and keep in Oregon.
So it sounds like your first question is, will we continue with the building and the $6,000?
Yes.
It's the building and 9,000.
Yeah, and that's in the budget. I'm sorry, 9,000, okay. I didn't mean to reduce it.
Every penny counts.
Part of it's specific, the village doesn't charge them rent, so that's
Yeah.
part of the deal.
Yeah. So personally, I think we continue with it. I would ask what other people think, because it takes all of us.
I have a few questions. I'm new to the board and don't really know anything about the youth center except for where the building is. So I apologize if my questions are elementary, but I'm getting up to speed. My first question is, and I know you alluded to wanting to form as a 501c3, what is the current legal structure of the youth center?
We are currently under the umbrella of the YMCA of Dane County.
We are the Oregon Youth Center managed by the YMCA of Dane County.
So you're kind of a charter of the YMCA? So if the YMCA pulls its support, and I don't mean to lump in its funding with its support, is that correct?
They don't fund the youth center unless we run at a deficit. They pledge no funding to the youth center unless we have a deficit, at which point they cover the deficit. We cover the deficit.
So if the YMCA pulls its funding,
They don't give funding.
all right, so I'm trying to, in my mind.
So they're our managing branch. So they take care of payroll. They take care of checks in and out. They take care of some of the trainings that we do. However, my budget gets charged for those. They take care of employment. I am employed via the YMCA of Dane County. I get my checks from the YMCA of Dane County. I'm not exactly sure how that contract works out, and quite honestly, we haven't been able to find a contract. I'm sure there was one at some point, but I believe the Y has been involved with the youth center since 2004 or 5, and the records have not been well kept.
So can I restructure my question?
Yes.
When the YMCA is no longer able to run the Oregon Youth Center and will need to cease operating the youth center, what will the legal structure of the youth center be on that day?
Right now, the advisory board is working to set up the youth center as at first a corporation, because you must become a corporation before you can become a not-for-profit entity. Once they have filed the articles of incorporation, then bylaws need to be passed by a board of directors. Once we have the bylaws and the board of directors in place, the youth center can file to be a 501c3 not-for-profit entity. It would be its own freestanding not-for-profit entity.
And do you have any kind of an appreciation for what amount of time is required to file for articles of incorporation, to incorporate, and then to file for 501c3 and to be awarded your 501c3 status?
I've spent the last 2 weeks looking into it. I have a binder.
And what kind of time frame do you think that, from the date that you file for the corporation, are you looking at?
So when you file for the corporation, you're immediately a corporation. When you file for the 501c3, you can begin to act as a 501c3. However, it can take from 3 to 6 months to get that EIN, the number from the government, so that you have your ES number to be tax exempt. However, you can start collecting donations and then retroactively fit them. This is my understanding. I am not a lawyer. We are working with a law firm right now who very well may be willing to take us on and help with some of this as well. Mount Horeb's Youth Center is willing to lend us their articles of incorporation and their bylaws so that we can look through theirs and adopt ours to be along the same lines but more suited for the community of Oregon.
So basically you won't have a structure whatsoever when the YMCA
Correct.
pulls out, but you've already got a contingency in place that you'll be able to carry forward without their support.
If the board acts quickly, we may have our 501c3 by the time the Y decides to no longer run programming at the Oregon Youth Center.
And I don't want to put you on the spot, so feel free to not answer this question, but what will happen to you?
I can answer that. So
My
she
job
doesn't
is
have to-
terminal.
she doesn't have
I'm
to.
done November 6th.
So would you be staying on if the youth center was able to form as a 501c3?
I would really like to. When I came to this board 4 years ago, there had been a lot of turnover with youth center managers. The behavior at the youth center hadn't been great because kids don't form a relationship with a building. Kids form a relationship with human beings, just like human beings form relationships with other human beings, not a building. And I gave a commitment to Steve and the rest of the board at that time that I would stay for 5 years. After having spent a year, I would like to stay as long as you'll have me.
I have a question as well. Was the deficit that you're running foreseeable? Is it an ongoing deficit, or did it suddenly appear at a certain time? Could you
It's an
explain?
ongoing deficit, and it appeared when the YMCA made the choice to reallocate United Way funds away from the youth center. It was around $12,500 that we were receiving from the United Way, which was reallocated to their Kids Fit program. Where those dollars are, I'm not sure anymore. Kids Fit is no longer running, so I'm not sure where those dollars have been reallocated. However, because we are a YMCA program, we are unable to approach the United Way about funding because the YMCA works with United Way and gives those funds where they see fit.
Is it Mike Denu? How do you say his name?
Mike Danu,
Denu?
he's my boss.
It sounds almost like he determined or forecast a deficit and therefore, because of that, decided to cut funding. Is that the sequence?
Well, actually, like I said, they don't give funding.
Yeah.
They cover the deficit. And this had been forecast, and I have been contacted in January asking for Steve's information, for Nadine's information, for Dale's information to get more funding, and nothing came of it. I don't believe they reached out or contacted. I was contacted again 3 months later, April, with the same request, and then again at the end of July. And that was the first time somebody reached out. And I understand that in the 8th month of a budget cycle, finding $10,000 is not a viable option. And I explained that when consulted, but I'm just the manager.
Thank you.
I have just 2 more questions, unless somebody asks a question that makes me think of another one. The first question is, and I understand that you might not have an answer to this because you are a YMCA program right now, and that's fine if you don't. But have you reached out to try to see how you could share resources with the school district? For example, school runs until 3 o'clock, the entire building is empty at 4.
To address that concern, and that's something that I've seen happen where they move youth centers into schools, but the children that we service are the kids that 10 minutes before the bell rings, everything is packed up and they are bouncing in their seat. The minute that bell rings, they are out the door. If the program moves within the school, we won't reach that demographic anymore, and that's the demographic we need to reach. However, we have reached out to the school district about partnering together, or maybe receiving funds from them. We don't know what this looks like yet, and I honestly shouldn't even be speaking to it.
Yeah.
But I've seen it happen with other centers. They move into the school and they no longer reach the demographic of youth that they've been trying to reach.
So that seems a little counterintuitive to me, and again, I'm just new to this, I don't really know how all this works together, but if you've already got them in the building, it seems like it'd be easier to get more kids than once they hit the doors and go into the world. And then then they find the youth center on their own.
The school district does provide bus transport to the youth center. So the kids who are at risk, who need a space to be, but no longer would like to be within the school, ride the bus to the center. That same demographic of kids, if we move into the school, is no longer going to come to the center.
You have to understand that the youth center has become a very safe haven for a lot of young people.
It's not a schoolroom. It's a space that the kids have helped to build and structure as their own. They can play air hockey. They can play pool. They can play the Wii. They can play board games. They can do homework club together. They can do healthy cooking club together. They can do yoga. These are all things that these kids can utilize a space that is geared for them.
And they're equal. No one judges them. They are equal.
As well, where we're located right now makes it very easy for us to partner with both the library and the senior center. With the senior center, we do intergenerational programming, and we just all get together and walk up. When we do programs with the library, we walk where we're going. Putting us out in either OMS or RCI would remove us from downtown. It would make it very difficult for us to get our kids back into town to do the community service projects we do, to partner with the programs we partner with. We're reaching a demographic of youth who school is not something they love. They're doing it, and we're encouraging them to continue doing it and to continue doing it at a high level, but they're the kids that can't wait to get out the door. They're the kids that need something else because either they only participate in one sport a year, and so, during that fall sport time, they're busy and they've got stuff going on, but after that, they have nothing. They're the kids who don't like sports at all and have nowhere else to be after school.
They're the kids who might have rough home lives, and so it's almost safer for them to come to us than to be going home alone. These kids have really built relationships with not only Diane and Alex and the volunteers. We've seen a great turnaround of kids who have aged out. If you're not aware, the youth center is for kids through 5th through 8th grade. When they enter high school, they can choose to come back and volunteer. They can earn their community service hours that they need to graduate as well. Diana's also opened it up when some of the kids have gotten in trouble and need to serve community service, that they can do so by coming in and working with the youth. And we see time and time again, the kids that want to come back, that want to give to what's helped them stay on a good path. Most of them will stop in. We don't turn the high schoolers away if they want to pop in and chat or sit and do homework or whatever it may be, because they feel a deep connection. And that's one important thing that I know Oregon has been working on for quite some time, is branding itself and making this a place that people choose to stay, to live, to work, to play, and to be a community. And this is what has been begun over the last 4 years, and we're seeing the benefits, and we're seeing these kids investing in this community and going on and choosing professions that give back and help. So it's definitely a program that it's designed in a way that makes the kids accountable and a part of it. To put it in a school would take away that piece.
I would like to actually invite all of you to come take a look at our center and see the difference between what our center is and what a school building is. School buildings are wonderful, they're phenomenal places, but some kids don't function well there, and so we give them another outlet. The kids paint the walls in the summer. It gives them a sense of ownership. The kids spend a week deep cleaning the youth center to give them a sense of ownership. And I've seen when school starts that next year and someone's got their feet on the wall, another kid comes up and says, "Get your feet off that wall, I just painted it. We just cleaned this place." They feel a sense of ownership. It's their center. It's not my center. It's not their center. It's the kids' center.
Plus,
And it would
you
be
get the building rent-free, right?
Well, okay, so the way it works out is the village commits $15,000 a year, and 6,000 of that is in space, 9,000 of that is in monetary contribution.
So you wouldn't really save money by going to school, would you?
No,
Yeah, that's what I thought.
no.
How much are the
And we would-
utilities?
It varies. For
3,600.
some months, it was around 250, and that's not including water and sewer. And then for some of those brutal cold months, and we didn't turn the heat up. We couldn't afford to, so we layered, those of us that were staff layered and layered and layered, and we had blankets available for the youth. And some of those months were upwards of $500.
And who pays the utilities?
We do,
Who pays the water bill?
we do.
Okay. I have just one last question. Have you approached the Boys and Girls Club at all to ask if they had any?
I can't speak to that.
I can, I have. They are beginning the talks. The first response I got was, we have no money in our budget to take on an outreach program. I lobbied very hard in terms of where our location is and the fact that the school district does stop outside of the youth center and the kids can get off there, so there's no transportation issues needed. I talked about the fact that the village does graciously give us an in-kind donation and does not charge us rent for the building, and does provide some funding, and that our current municipalities that are funding us have all committed to stay in and fund. He was going to take it up one level and get back in touch with me. I have not received that call back.
And I just want to thank you all. I can tell your passion for the youth, and I know how important that is to young people. And I know what you mean when you say that not everybody fits in a classroom personally. So I really appreciate you taking the time this evening to come and present, and I appreciate your willingness to think through my questions with me and help me better understand what it is you do. So thank you.
Steve, do you have any other?
Yeah, well, I think you've obviously informed us very well of what's happening, and please keep us informed. It can be by coming back to a meeting or through an email to Mike that he'll put in our packet so we know where things are. I think you mentioned, Diane, that we're not in a position to come up with $10,000, unfortunately. I think there's been a lot of support from the board for the youth center, and I think that continues. We have significant budgetary concerns also. I'm not saying we can't help at all. We'll look at that as time goes on, but keep us posted on how things are going and what's up so we kind of know and see where, if there's a time we should take some action.
Can you clarify for me quick, because I was a little confused when I got the packet. There was a page in here that was copied draft, or, sorry, I lost myself. Mike, you had sent it, and you had talked about the budget, and there was a total recreation budget of 20,000. Was that part of this discussion, or was that part of a different discussion?
That's in the village's budget, that's where you make the payment to the youth center out of that budget.
So,
The rest of the money goes to the school district for the rec program.
We pay the school for a summer rec program, that's where the rest of that goes, that and the youth center.
so the budget that we have for the youth center is the 9,000 plus the 6,000 in kind.
Correct.
And that's been budgeted for the year, and that's been spent for the year.
We have not sent the money yet to them.
Is
We
that-
haven't requested the funds
That's
yet.
correct.
Is that included in the budget shortfall that you've come to the board with today? Yes, no?
We will, oh, can I speak here?
Yeah.
So, because of the situation, Jeff, if I received a request right now to give the youth center that money, I'd come back to the village board and we would discuss that, because I'm not sure we'd be doing that at this point, but because of the influx, I mean, everything in flux right now.
I'm sorry, does that mean that you don't have the budgeted funds?
The money's in the budget.
Okay, so the funds that were budgeted, so when things are moving, if the youth center approaches, okay.
Yep, then they'll come back to the board, we'll have to discuss.
So
it.
that was
If
budgeted
things
in
go
our-
in the right direction, then you don't want to send 9,000, I don't want to sound heartless here, but send $9,000 and you know,
Goes
November
away.
5th, the place closes, we've lost $9,000. It's not going to make any difference.
I don't
And
disagree.
the other issue is that, you know, when the money was being sent to the youth center, the Y was the organization above the youth center. And so we're providing an organization with public monies. They're going to have something in place so that public monies is, you know, is protected.
Yeah.
Right.
So, to help me understand again, the shortfall, when you project, or when the letter that was sent projects $13,000 to $15,000 shortfall for the year, is that inclusive of the $9,000 that the village
That money was already accounted
traditionally
for.
would give? So it's actually a $22,000 to $24,000 shortfall without the village's money?
Okay, so the way that the budget works is we budget in the monies that are going to be given to us throughout the year.
Yeah,
Those are budgeted in to each month that we believe we receive them. We usually don't request village funding until November or December. It's one of our larger chunks. So with looking at the budget and all of the monies forecasted to come in and all of the monies forecasted to go out,
Got it.
that is our deficit. Does
Got
that make
it.
sense?
Yep.
And I know it's kind of sketchy.
yeah, that makes sense.
No.
I appreciate it, thank you.
For what?
Jerry?
I have a question, yes.
Oh.
Mike, what has to happen in order for the youth center to get that $9,000 check from the
Well, in
village?
the past, they would send us a written request, and then it'd just go through the invoice process.
No, but you indicated that,
Well, I would, if the request would be sent, if I got that in my office, I would come to the village board.
no, it
probably-
sounded like there was a contingency on that.
Well, I'm saying that if the Y goes away, the
Right.
village board would have to think twice about giving that check to an organization, no offense, without any structure, you know what I mean?
Right.
I mean,
But it sounds like-
you're giving public monies to somebody that, you know, there has to be some type of structure in place.
So what he's saying, to answer your question is that after November 5th, we have to have a structure in place in which would allow us to receive the funds in trust as a nonprofit or whatever we establish. Without establishing something,
Well,
they would be giving money to
To use an
nothing.
example, then if you have your 501c in place, you're all good. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well-
You're giving, the village is giving public monies to an organization. We have to have some guarantee that the money is going to be used for what it's being requested. And number two, and I've mentioned this to the director, that I mean, the other issue is that, you know, they're going to be, I'm not trying to be the bad guy here, but I guess might as well be. They really should not be in a village building without insurance that they currently have to the Y. So there's a lot of things that have to come into play, and they're working on that.
Right, and can
Yeah.
you give me an
Yes.
example of what that structure would be?
They're working on it.
We're working on
Yeah.
looking at and establishing a 501c3
Right.
nonprofit.
Okay, that's
Yep.
exactly what I
Yep.
indicated.
Yeah, they'd have, in my mind, a governing board with some rules for
Right.
operating,
Got it.
that type of thing.
So-
And I talked to Diane when we talked a couple weeks ago, that
So if that's,
they can't operate without insurance.
so if that's
They
in,
have to have
if
that.
that's in place.
And we've looked into the insurance issue.
Yeah,
If that's in
what I
place by
And that will
November,
be covered.
we're all good.
thought. It comes back to the board, we decide, and I think we move forward with it.
You know, another option that some of the people at the meeting the other night threw out was to be adopted, like so many other youth centers, by the local municipality. But it didn't sound like that was the direction the municipality wanted to take. But Stoughton's Youth Center, as is Evansville's Youth Center, are both under their local governments, similar to what a senior center or a library would be.
That would be more involved, as we'd have to go through a process of developing a agreement that we have with the senior center. And the one we just did took us 2 years. That's a longer process. No,
So
they're
you keep working.
they're working on it. No, they're working. I mean, getting Mount Horbs. I mean, I'm just trying to say that, you know, we have to be careful where the public monies go.
Yeah, we're not trying to be difficult, what Mike said, we're trying to make it clear where things head as time goes on, and you've got
Yes, and
a
we
chunk of
respect
time
that,
now
and
to
we
make it
appreciate
work.
the
Yeah,
village continuing their support where it currently is, letting us remain in the building. And will
insurance.
eventually, with insurance,
Yeah.
as we get transitioned over, and then you'll continue providing what you've been providing.
yeah.
Would our
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
bylaws
quite.
suffice for that request?
We'd have to see them.
Yeah.
Have to see 'em.
If you have stuff, the questions, get it to Mike, we'll take a
Yeah.
look at it. Eric has a
I mean, it's good that you have this extension to November. It gives you some breathing
Yeah, that
room
was
to work
a huge
on.
help.
If I'm not mistaken, you have to have a letter from the IRS too, which grants the 501c3 status.
That's the EIN. That was the
Yeah.
number I mentioned before.
Right, but that has a tax implication of whether or not you're a tax exempt organization. You know, under
Yes.
some things.
But from the minute you send, I should not even be talking.
No, from the minute you send it, from the minute that you apply and you send in your dollars, it's in place. It's unfortunate that government works really slow and it takes a while for them to get all of their paperwork in order. So once we have our nonprofit in place, and hopefully we'll have that done by November 1st when the Y is done, we're in good shape. We will be a corporation. We will have monthly corporate notes with details of all of the income, the expenses. So the village board will be up to date on absolutely every cent going in and out of that group.
Okay, and Eric has a question.
And my question is more for Mike. As landlords, what can we do to fix this heat issue that they don't have heat in that building?
Gary Dish's proposed in the 2015 budget to replace the furnace.
Okay.
Right, Lisa? I think I said it in there. I didn't think I know it's in there.
Okay.
And does that include some of the energy efficiencies that you would think of, like insulation and things? That
I just,
I think it was just for the first.
yeah, I just look, yeah.
We can take a look at that during budget.
That's a
time.
whole, I
We
guess
did-
that's a
we
separate
did do some
conversation, is
insulating in
what,
the
you know,
past
what would
over
the
there.
building be if the youth center wasn't in it? It's a separate conversation. I
The
suppose.
village has done maintenance on the building
Yeah.
annually,
That
including
big-
replacing, oh, go
Go
ahead.
ahead, no, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Including replacing doors, for example.
Yeah, the big front door, we insulated that and fixed that because it was just a money loser. So we can take a look at that too.
Now,
It should be warm enough when they're there.
one more thing. One of the questions that was talked about on the Thursday night meeting was, okay, if the Y pulls out November 9th, our calendar year starts January 1st. What do we need from November 9th to January 1st to keep those doors open for the kids? And we're looking at around $5,000. Now, hopefully we can cover that through some donations from businesses that we have started conversation with. And so I think we're going to be okay that way. And as far as, once we are a corporation, we will send you paperwork, certificates of insurance for everything that you need for your files.
Excellent.
Yeah, that's what we'll need.
Yep.
So we're
We have
covered.
a fiduciary responsibility for taxpayers' money. We need to be sure it's going to be used appropriately and watched over and not just dissipated and kind of out the doors. So,
Because we do have an accountant who will start working with us, and we'll get everything together.
But it sounds like you've lined a lot of stuff up already.
Yeah.
You haven't had a lot of time.
We kind of, after the Y has done this so many times, threatening to pull out and do things,
Yeah.
you kind of start looking beyond. And I think we kind of got an inkling come January. And so I took and downloaded all the 501c3 paperwork and started putting a binder in place that if and when this came to be, which we really weren't sure what was going on, that we had information available to us quickly. But we have a lot of work to do
Yeah.
to get some things in place. So we appreciate the Village of Oregon continuing to work with us. We appreciate you hearing us tonight.
And a new furnace is going to be greatly appreciated.
If you could talk about some caulk around the windows.
Yeah, we'll look at some energy saving things, yeah.
That'd be
So,
Help keep the
thank-
heat in from that new heating.
Thanks for the work you've done. We appreciate that. I know you've got a lot coming up. We appreciate you doing that. And please stay in touch so we're updated and we know where things are because the time will go by pretty fast.
It will.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll proceed to item F, discuss with Amanda Peterson and possible action on approving resolution number 1413, replacing advisory referendum question on November ballot. So Amanda's not here. We just need to approve this resolution, right?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Yeah, this is for can't think of what's called now.
Move to amend.
Thank you, Matt. Move to amend, and keep in mind, Matt made a great point last time that voting to put this on the ballot does not mean you support move to amend. That could be important to people. It means that we're all, whoever votes for it is interested in letting people have a say in the move to amend movement. So we have motion second. Are there questions or comments?
Didn't we already do this? Or what did we do last
You,
time?
there was the actual formal action to direct that this question be placed on the ballot wasn't taken.
Gotcha.
That
Okay.
has to be done tonight.
Yeah, that was my question myself, too. We did this once. So any further questions? All in favor of Resolution 1413, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Takes us down to item 4. The board may adjourn in a closed session and reconvene in open session from time to time during the course of the meeting pursuant to Wisconsin statute, section 19.85, 1C and F, relating to the investigation of charges against specific persons, and pursuant to section 19.851E to discuss possible TIF2 assistance for House for a business park project.
Move to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Boudreaux,
Yes.
Staton,
Yes.
Follick,
Yes.
Poole,
Yes.
Carpenter. Yes. Brethauer,
Yes?
Grenier.
Yes.
We'll go to closed session. We'll leave the room and come back.
Can I ask who did the second, because I didn't?
Who made the
I mean, to me,
Very organized.
Good evening, everyone. This is a meeting of the Oregon Village Board. We just returned from closed session.
that's what I would do.
So at item 6, Village President's Report. Item A, discussion and possible action regarding Chief Pettit's retirement agreement. The board did approve Chief Pettit's retirement agreement effective September 1st. That takes us to item 7, approval of minutes, August 4th, 2014 meeting.
Oh, Steve, I'm sorry, the board should vote, please.
Let's vote on the
Okay,
retirement agreement.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yep.
So we'll need a motion on that.
Motion.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So that does approve that retirement agreement.
Thank you.
So we're on item 7, approving minutes from the August 4th, 2014 meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any additions or corrections? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 8, approval of vouchers. We have vouchers tonight in the amount of $141,130.14 for approval.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Poole,
I'm going to abstain on this.
Boudreaux,
Yes.
Grenier,
Yes.
Bollig,
Yes.
Brethauer,
Yes.
Carpenter,
Yes.
Staton,
Yes, so that motion carries 601.
Steve,
Item 9 is village attorney report and village administrator report. Our attorney Matt Dragney is with us tonight. What's that?
He's looking at me like, are you wondering why?
Item A is Dane Con update and paying recent invoice.
I was gonna say, as I know Matt has to get to a meeting,
Yeah.
I can do those without him.
Okay,
So could we do, we're gonna wait on Mark Mortensen's request, so could we do 2 and 3?
yeah, so 2 is discussion and possible action,
Thank you.
approving easement with ATC for electric transmission line easement contingent on village attorney's approval.
So I've reviewed the easement and the documents provided by ATC. I think the approval, subject to village attorney approval, is appropriate, because I have a couple of questions that I haven't been able to sort out yet, relating to how they're calculating the compensation they'll pay the village. They're indicating that they would pay $204,000 for the easement, plus $2,500 for the village waiving its right to have its own appraisal done, and $500 for granting permission to apply chemicals as part of the initial tree and brush clearing. Now, they've included an agreement here, or something relating to clearing the right-of-way, relating to cutting down trees and things of that nature, but it doesn't really include any detailed information on, it doesn't say what they mean by applying chemicals. So I guess my question to you is, do you all need more information about that before you sign off on this? Or are you comfortable with just them applying herbicide? Is that something you want more information about, want to talk about before we say yes to that sort of thing? The easement itself looks like a typical transmission line easement. I assume Mark is satisfied with the location, doesn't have any
He is.
concern.
Yes,
So,
he is.
so Mark Below doesn't have concerns with it's near the wastewater treatment plant, it's near an existing power line, I believe.
Mark's comfortable with that.
So Mark's comfortable with the location. I've reviewed the appraisal report, and again, my only question is, the appraisal report indicates $102,000. They're saying they'll pay us $102,000 based on that, plus another $102,000, which they're describing as a true-up of the easement area, blah, blah, blah. I don't understand what that means. So I was just gonna call them and say, what does this mean? Or maybe not, maybe just say, fine, we'll take the $204,000. So I guess the one question is, do you want more information on the chemical application?
So the chemical application would be within Department of Natural Resources guidelines, EPA and all that, right? It'd be governed
Presumably.
by state law.
Presumably. Yeah, I mean, they're not gonna violate the law in doing it, but they are asking for us to authorize that within the easement area.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming it's an herbicide, but I don't know.
It looks to me as if it's in the dog park area, the unfenced dog park area.
Do you know?
Yeah.
Will there be some sort of accommodation made for the people that walk in that area?
Not, I don't know.
I mean, we could do, I know that they're anxious, we could bring it back on the September 8th. I know they're anxious to get this approved,
Not
but
to delay it, but just to thinking through the possible herbicide in the animals, maybe.
mean, would you be comfortable with having Mike or Matt ask them that question, what
Yeah.
they're doing? If they're
Sure.
satisfied, then they can go ahead?
Absolutely.
That'd work for me. Okay. It's a good point, Doug.
So approval, subject to village attorney and village administrator approval of the
Yeah.
easement and of the chemical application?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I will make a point of giving you a report on the 8th.
Okay. So we need that as a motion?
So move.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion or questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And item 3, discussion possible action regarding possibly increasing village board salaries.
The only reason I had it under math report was I know there's the whole timing aspect of it, Steve.
Yeah.
And so the board can,
Well, the short answer is you can't approve an increase for you during your current term, but you could approve an increase to be effective
next
for
April.
the next
April.
term.
There you go.
So if you think that trustees who serve after next April should be compensated at a different level, you can make that change now, but you need to do it before next April.
There you go.
So here's my first
Thanks,
question.
Matt.
You want to deal with this tonight, or do you want to put this off to our next meeting? We've been here 3 hours already.
Why don't we talk about this term budget, since it is a budget item?
That's fine.
Sounds like a good idea.
That still works time-wise, right?
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
if that's
Yeah.
okay. I
Yeah,
mean,
that's fine with me.
if you want to put it on a future agenda, we can, but
Yeah.
I don't think this is going to be a real long discussion.
And one thing I'd like Matt to clarify, because our terms are staggered, so I'd be voting on something that would impact my term,
Yeah.
but it wouldn't impact Darlene's term. And I don't know how that works, but I'd be interested to know.
That's why I had him here for that, so.
But maybe we could tee that up
I'm
for.
just kidding, yeah.
Yeah,
I'll ask him.
Let's do that, we do that at maybe our first budget meeting.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's part of the 15 budget.
And Matt can
because-
answer that question
It
via
will.
phone or email.
Yeah.
too, so-
Yeah.
Okay, so we got that one done. And we got C1 done.
Yep.
So we want to go back to 9A, right?
Yep, please.
Okay, so 9A is Danecom update and paying recent invoice. Mike?
I put this on because I was ready to actually pay the bill that's part of this item. And then I received an email that they're having an issue still with Danecom. And I actually what I did was I actually forwarded an email to former trustee Donovan on the second item, and he had a comment about Danecom in response to. I thought Dave would like the next
good.
one. But anyways, and so I sent out a brief email to a number of other administrators in Dane County asking if their boards and councils are paying this, and it was kind of a mixed message. There were a number of them were referring to finance, and they were waiting because we're paying for a system. I think as Sean, the mayor of Fitchburg, is saying for 2 years, and we have nothing to show for it. And so I think I may actually do is ask the board to maybe wait on paying this invoice, and let's see what happens over the next couple of weeks to see, particularly what happens with the rail system, but also see if other communities are not going to pay. The reason I'm hesitant is that we signed an agreement to pay, and we've got an invoice. I don't know what the county would do to us if we don't pay. So I don't want to be the only community out there in Dane County not paying their invoice, but if there's a movement that communities are not going to pay the invoice, I think I may want to hold on it. So if you want to give me just a couple of weeks, I'll work on that, and bring that back.
So you'll bring that
Yeah,
back to us?
so I just want to get the board in the loop on this, that the system is still having major delays and problems, so.
Okay.
I will, it's another item, so I'll bring that back on the 8th as well.
Okay. Any questions for Mike on that right now? Okay, we'll go to item B, Department of Revenue decision, EMS insurance cost shift constitutes a transfer of service.
I put this in the packet for a couple of reasons. That this shows that we're members of this Dane County Cities and Village Association, and we pay dues. And I think this is one of the really good things they did was they, even though this does not affect us, because our fire district did not get the insurance to the county. This is a significant decision because if the village ever takes over the county roads, the county, by this decision, is now going to have to lower their levy. Now, they can appeal this, and they're thinking of appealing it, but that's a big deal.
Yeah.
And as the county tries to pass services on to other communities, if they do that, they're going to have to then reduce their levy as well. So it's actually a pretty big deal for our taxpayers.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Go to item 10, community input. Does anyone wish to address the board tonight? Seeing none, we'll go to item 11, proclamations and announcements. Item A, board comments. Any proclamations over there?
I have a comment. I have heard from the people in the village about our bicycle path, and people are concerned that, okay, the bicycle path sounds like a great idea, but they also think that we should have bicycle license. And just the other night, a young man on his bicycle at dark time, no reflectors on, no lights. We almost hit him, and that happened again last night too. It's really scary out there, and we should maybe have the police department enforce that more. I don't know. The other thing, I should say that people should go over to the library. They have a new bronze statue out in their parking lot that has been given to them by the Larson family, and it's just lovely. And the senior center has been doing a lot to their building too, with painting and new flooring. Just some comments.
Good, thank you. Anyone else? Item B, staff comments. Item 1, status of bike trail construction and DNR grant for phases 2 and 3. Mike?
So the construction started this week. Mark was out again today with the contractor, and they're starting to do the tree labeling and removal, so forth. And then I was able to get a response back from the DNR about why we didn't, as Steve said, I mentioned before, we were 5th out of 19. And you can see that the city of Platteville received all the grant money for our region. So she said we had a really good, application, and, we'll certainly think about, we'll have to think about applying for the next project. But this means that phases 2 and 3 will not happen until 2016 now. So, and the grant request was for $205,000. So that's a lot of money for the village to try to make up. So we'll keep working at it.
It'll happen at some point in time.
Yep.
I think. Okay, we'll go to item.
The Village of Oregon Code of Ordinances relating to shoreland regulations. I would make a motion to waive readings and adopt.
Second.
So this one is to get us into.
State compliance.
Yeah. So basically, our ordinances are the same as the state guidelines. And there was quite the discussion amongst some of the developers on the board on this.
The setback?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had 75 feet, right? The state says 50?
It's 50.
Yes.
That's what the commission's recommending.
Yeah, so we recommend the 50 feet.
Okay.
Didn't they have a long discussion on this when they first did this?
Yeah.
Maybe many meetings on what that setback should be, wasn't there?
That, well, that was,
something else?
There was a variety of setbacks.
well, it was, I think, with the stormwater ordinance
Yes.
was a
Yeah.
big
Yeah.
deal, yeah.
That's not this.
This is different.
Okay.
I mean, basically, under the new law, we are required to enact, this was Jeannie saying, which has certain minimal standards, and the shoreline areas are subject to municipal regulations rather than the county. In the past, we would say, well, the county is 75 feet, so now the state decided to get involved in this, and now we're having to follow the state law. So,
Okay.
Any further questions or comments? So we have a motion and a second to waive the readings and adopt ordinance number 1404 to repeal and recreate Chapter 40 of the Village of Oregon Code of Ordinances relating to shoreline regulations. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item 3.
Discussion and possible action regarding Dane County Planning and Development Land Division Review regarding the proposed CSM of the former Mueller implement on County Highway 138 in the town of Rutland, and I'd move for approval.
Second.
So basically what this is it's adjusting the lot line just a little bit, because right now it's running right through the middle of this guy's shed.
Shed, right.
And so we're gonna move it so it goes on the outside of his shed.
How did he get his shed built? Did that get discussed?
That was done quite a while ago.
Yeah, I don't know.
it's out in the township,
Yeah, it's in the township.
or is seen by the county.
So because it's in our, what's it called?
ETZ zone.
Extraterritorial
Yeah.
zone.
Basically, it's one of those things where they let us know for, to be polite, and then we basically approve it.
So my concern is that somebody could just build a shed and get additional land given to them, basically, because we would redraw the lot line so that it includes the shed that they built Am I understanding that right?
The line is being moved to, let me see here. The line is being moved to the east. So, yeah, right, I think he is getting a little bit. But I think it has to do with the selling of the property that I'm sure it came up in the.
Yeah, the property is already sold,
Yeah.
or they have an accepted offer or something.
Yeah.
So
And this was a contingency on that.
So here's an opportunity for the village, right, to get the fair value for the amount of land that we're potentially going to be giving to
It's
the
not-
property owner,
it's
right?
not the
But it's
village's
not.
land.
It is strictly private.
So who's on the other side of the, so is it Miller Implement on one side and then a private farm on the other side?
Yeah, I think it's, yes, it's private on both sides.
And has the homeowner who's giving up a portion of their lot agreed to give it up?
I believe so, I'm not sure. But
Doesn't Miller own both, or he owns both? Gene?
I think so. I think he owned both properties. and
Does he?
then He was,
I think so, yeah.
yeah, and selling the property that the land was carved out of.
Yeah, I was not at the
To the
commission
buyer.
meeting, so I don't.
It sounds like they're trying to make the line consistent so they can, with where it should be, so they can get a clear title and
Right.
So
consummate the sale.
Miller's requesting that we do this so that they can sell off part of
They're
the land and
correct.
retain the rest?
Correct.
Yep. And I would guess the two property owners have worked this out among
But
themselves.
don't they
and-
plan to
Yeah.
make the road through there? Isn't that where that road?
At some point, but
Yeah,
that's
out that way,
further.
yeah.
Has
further
Matt
east.
looked at this agreement?
It's not an agreement, it's just a CSM. That comes from the planning, from the planning division at the county.
So here's my concern, if we roll this all the way back, right, to this transaction.
Mhm.
My concern is that we're now involving ourselves in a legal matter, which is the legal definition of what the lot is. And we're gonna amend that by this motion, and we're gonna move a lot line. But I don't know legally enough about who's involved to know whether I should be making a decision to move the lot line, or whether I should get a attorney's recommendation on whether or not we would be free from any future lawsuits or encumbrance as a result of doing that.
The county has done all that. They have to send this to us for approval. And it's basically, these things are rubber stamped, right, Mike?
It's
I
actually.
mean, I've seen a lot of these come our way. By the
Yeah.
time it gets here, it's all done. All that work is taken care
Yeah.
of, and but we have to approve it because it's in our ATZ.
Yeah, so what do I have in front of me that states that the work is all done and that this is just a rubber stamp vote?
The fact it came from the county.
Hmm.
They do all that work.
I think Bullseye is the other property in question. The board, if you're not comfortable with it, that's your decision to vote against it.
The only thing is I'm just not certain of my legal
Yeah,
right
yeah.
to move a lot line.
Yeah.
based on
I can
what's in
tell you
front of me.
that this is very common, and I understand what you're saying. I don't know how to answer your questions by saying surveyors do this, the parties agree to it. You gotta understand that the county planning department wouldn't be pushing this, if I can say it that way, or pushing it forward unless the property owners were in agreement. 'Cause they,
But by approving this, so I guess my next question would be, does that give us up any control that we have as to what takes place out in that area? Because our so-called plan that we have for that side of the development.
truly, you're moving a property line. The property line's going through a shed, you're just truly.
Right, but I'm saying somebody has bought that now, and we don't know what that new business is going to be. Do we want that business there? If, you know what I mean? If
Yeah,
that is being
I don't-
purchased.
I don't think we can control
We
that.
can't?
It's, but section C for the county, Mike Slavny said
See,
that.
county, yeah.
What happens over there, right now, we can't control. You can a farm building like
Yeah.
we got,
Yeah,
or
I mean-
or used car lot, or a bar. We have no control over that.
The only way you can control it is to be over there and annexing the property and then having it under the village's zoning code.
I mean, that's why we've talked off and on about going across 13814, so we would control that area and could control what goes in there. Right now, we can't. But that'd be a benefit of actually getting that property in the village at some point in time in the future. That's one of the benefits.
So if the board's uncomfortable with this, then I would I would vote to deny it, and then
Yeah.
Mark will inform the county of that.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with it. I voted for a lot of them over the years, so.
We all have, but
Yeah.
I'm just, yeah.
Yeah. And like Mike said, man, the county planning has gone through all this, all the legalities, and then it comes back to them.
It appears the same person.
But we can all vote the way we want, so.
Miller owns both.
Right.
So he built the shed.
Okay, so we have a motion and second to approve the CSM on the former Mueller implement on County Highway 138 in the town of Rutland. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Jeff?
Nay.
Okay, so that's 6-1. Item 4, discussion possible action. Dane County Planning and Development Land Division review regarding proposed CSM at 5683 Lincoln Road.
Okay, so, so I would make a motion, to
I'm sorry,
approve
Judy.
the Dane County, oh, I'm sorry.
No, I should have kept quiet.
Steve's doing the agenda.
So I'll make the motion to approve this, the CSM regarding
Second.
the 5683 Lincoln Road. Okay. And I'm looking at this agenda item, and I can't remember what we approved.
So this is a CSM, this is very common out in the township. They're cutting a piece of property out for a single-family house.
Okay, that's what it was. I remember there was like zero discussion about it, and I couldn't even remember.
This happens a lot out.
Yes.
I'll second that.
I think Jerry
It
did.
was on the,
Yeah, we got a
I
second.
already did that.
Oh, okay.
So questions?
So this is a personally owned
Yep.
piece of property, and they want to rezone part of it?
They want to cut out.
It's already done.
I know it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is mainly just an informational thing. The
Well-
County Zoning and Land Regulation Department has taken this action. It is done, and they carved out a piece of property on their land and sold it to someone, and it was approved. And I think just the way that the
timing happens, but I think they need they need to be able to tell the state that it's been approved by the village, I believe.
Well,
Pretty
it's
presumptive,
in the
isn't it,
it's in the
for them
town
to-
it's in the town of Oregon.
But it's in their ETZ zoning area.
Right.
Yeah.
Just 3 miles, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, town of Oregon has approved this. Dane County zoning has approved this, and
yeah, in my mind, it's just more of a courtesy that
Courtesy,
they're
yeah.
letting us know.
yeah.
So we have to approve this? I thought it was just like an information item.
My
Yeah, I guess
understand-
you're right, because it's in the E's.
There's sometimes when, at the Plan Commission meeting, Mike Slavny will say it's outside the area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what would happen if we didn't approve it.
Be interested to find
Try
out.
it once and find out.
I think it's pretty presumptuous for somebody to go ahead and do something and then say, oh, by the way, would you mind just approving this? Like our vote doesn't matter. And if it didn't matter, there wouldn't be a rule that required it.
Yeah, but I don't know why it's required, but just,
It's an opportunity for comment, I think.
We're commenting.
Yeah.
but it's too late.
I have a comment.
It's not an approval.
It shouldn't come to us after it's done.
It's not an
That's my
approval.
comment.
Well, we'll have Jerry check on that process and report
Yep.
back to us.
Yeah, you're
Is
right.
that all right, Jerry?
I'll let you know
Okay,
Okay, good.
okay,
at a future meeting,
okay.
September 8th.
Yeah, I think
gonna be a
Doug has a
long
point,
meeting.
though. It's not, it doesn't need our approval, we could just have the opportunity to comment on it. Is that the deal?
So you don't need a motion and approve?
Well, I think we make a motion that we have no objections. If you have an objection, then you get to vote no.
And we're taking the recommendation of the planning commission.
Right, yeah.
They've already reviewed this.
Yeah, one of the things,
I just fundamentally don't, I don't have a problem necessarily with this particular issue, but I fundamentally have a problem with somebody doing something that requires my input and then asking me for my input afterwards. That's what I have a problem with.
Yeah.
So,
but at some point, you also need to trust your commissions that you've appointed into reviewing everything and then making a decision and then recommending their decision to the board for approval.
yeah, so if that had happened,
And that
we'd
did
be
happen.
having a different conversation.
No, that did happen. The planning commission reviewed this and said, this looks fine. Take it to the village board for final approval.
But it's done.
But in the past, I'll check with Mike Slavny, I see him this week, Jeff, our village planner. In the past, we've done CSMs, for example, like out on Netherwood, and the board will approve the CSM out in the township, but it'll be contingent on getting right of way, for example, from the property. And the county does it. The county allows us to do that. So I'll get some more information about the actual timing and the process of everything. So we do have input on these. I know that, because we've gotten right of way grants.
Yeah, that's right.
Granting of right of ways from the county. I'll put that on
So
for the
our-
next meeting.
Yeah, our plan commission looked at it, and Dane County Planning and Development also, which, that's why I've always been comfortable with doing it. I don't know if we're actually approving this, or how that would be termed, but we'll find out.
Good discussion. We should find out what we're doing.
Okay, so we have a motion second to approve the CSM at 5683 Lincoln Road. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Steve, going back to the TIF two, that we didn't have to discuss the one of the Railroad Commission, the TIF two, we don't discuss at all?
We
No.
didn't get the proposal from the railroad engineer.
Oh, you
Yeah,
did?
Mike said
Okay.
we'd hold that.
Okay,
and not
very
do
good.
it.
That's fine.
Item 14, minutes not requiring action from Oregon Area Fire EMS District, July 10th, 2014 Commission meeting. Those are online for anybody who wants them. Unfinished business, there is none. There is no new business tonight. Future agenda items, the main thing is for boards to be sure to notice the dates of the budget meetings and so on that are coming up, the meeting with the, joint meeting with the towns in August. And item 18 is a motion for adjournment.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion for adjourned. Thank you.
Did you understand what I was saying?